Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to day two of our successful parenting workshop. I hope we have gone over the homework that was given of writing the vision for your family, because this is quite important, as I mentioned yesterday, and I will just do a quick recap of the importance of a vision, and that is to align the direction of the family. And it is important that both the wife and the husband is on the same page, so that the children uh, can understand that there is no conflicting reports. So you'll see sometimes uh, many parents, the wife will say one thing and the father will say another thing. And we know how kids are, they very smart. They'll play one against the other. If they don't get their bread buttered on one side, they'll go to the other parent. So these are how kids are, and they're natural psychologists, and they know how to negotiate. And we can be at the wrong end of that negotiation. So it's integral that both the kids understand the vision of the parents, and it is clearly communicated. So if things are said that this what can be done, the child, whether they go to the mother or whether they go to the father, this is what's going to be followed. And so there's this congruency, this consistency that is playing out with regards to the child's life. So today we're looking at the identity and the values and the character of our children, and how we can bring that identity and those values and influence the character of our children. So inshallah, please have your workbook in front of you, and it's important that not only we listen passively, but we actively participate in this workshop. If you're just going to listen passively, then it's just going to be like one bayan, one talk. But if we actively engaged in this presentation, then inshallah it will give us a greater impetus to implement, and for us to understand, to comprehend. Otherwise, it mustn't just remain knowledge, but the whole purpose of this workshop is to implement, and for us to really foster a better relationship with our children. So identity means that, what does the child believe who they are? What does the parent believe who they are? And this is important for us. It is fundamental, as every human being, people identify themselves with, uh, with different affiliations. So, for example, someone will identify themselves, I am a South African, I am a Muslim. Some people identify themselves as, I'm a Liverpool fan, and they identify themselves as a die-hard Liverpool fan. And you'll see they'll have all the regalia, they'll have all uh, the, um, the things uh, related to soccer, and so they'll identify themselves as that. And anyone in opposition to that, or has a different viewpoint, will become an enemy, or there'll be some resilience to that. So as we grow up, people start to identify themselves and own their identity. And it's important that we channel the identity of the, the children in the correct way. Okay, so the second are the values, and this is how a child is going to make decisions. So most of us, we make decisions based on our values. And the third is the character and the akhlaq. And as mentioned, the beautiful hadith that the weightiest thing on the day of Qiyamah in terms of good a'mal and good deeds will be a person's character. So today, inshallah, we're going to look at how to shape our identity, how to shape values, and how to shape character. So our value system is has a hierarchy, and if we do not consciously align our value systems, then we will become inconsistent with what we say. And if we consciously align our value system, we will be congruent. And what's important in a child's life is this congruency. So it's not only what you say, but it's how you behave and how you act. So I'm going to explain a little bit in terms of our value system. So generally, people have different categories in their life. For some, it will be there's wealth, there's health, there's our spirituality, our iman, there's family, there's a person's work, and depending on the hierarchy of that value system, a person will make a decision. So if a person values their business, and this is what shapes their identity, and then a person will make decisions based on what they value the most. So for instance, if a person's on top of his value system, or the highest value that he has is his business, and then second is his health, and third is his family, he will first go and compromise his health, and he will compromise his family because of his business. So a person will spend most of his time in his business because that's what he held in high esteem, and he will compromise his health, and he will compromise his family. So it's important that we consciously understand the different value systems that we have in that we have in our life. So if a person now we need to write our value system, that what do I value the most? And we need to understand this first by ourselves, that the most important thing is our deen, our iman, our ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Second is our health. Third is our family. Thereafter comes our business and everything else. And if we shape these values, and I can't tell you what your value system needs to be, that you need to think about it. You need to you need to choose yourself, so you own it. And why this plays out, and how this, and I will give you examples how these things play out if we do not consciously align our value system. So for instance, if a person's value system, right on the top, number one, the first value system is deen, or Islam. Second is a person's health, and third is a person's family. So if the child is now faced with this situation, that after school there is sports, as an example, and this is very common, extramural activities. So after school is sports, and then you have madrasa at the same time. So now you are conflicted. You have two things that needs to be done: madrasa and sports on the other hand. So on the one hand, it's your son, this is what he wants to do, or your daughter, this is what she wants to do. It's very healthy for them. But on the other hand, you have madrasa. So if your hierarchy is your family first, then you will automatically concede to the child that they need to play sports. Or if health is primary or important, then you will say no, it is that child needs to be healthy. They need to exercise. So this will compromise a person going to madrasa. So I hope you can understand that the values that we have, and if we do not understand this consciously, then we will always by default making decisions based on what we value. And this is the fundamental building blocks of our decisions, and our decisions are what is going to shape uh, our trajectory in life. So the decisions that we make creates the trajectory of our life. I hope you follow. If there are any questions on this, um, you can always message us. We are taking questions as well, which you could do in the chat, or you could send us an email, and inshallah we will try to respond. So these value systems play out in our life. For example, some good value systems are, for example, being kind. And this is what we will speak to our children, that we need to be kind. We need to be kind to people that are good to us, people that are not good to us. And there are so many stories of our beloved Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam that could be used as this example. For instance, when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam entered into Makkah Mukarramah, uh, in the Yawmul Fath, on the year of the conquest, and when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam entered Makkah victoriously, the humbleness in which he entered, and all those people that had harmed him, that had hurt him, he gave them the very beautiful words, and echoed the very beautiful words of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam when he said, La tathriba alaykum al-yawm, there is no blame on you today. So being kind and compassionate, this is a very noble value system to have, because a person can have a value system of taking revenge. So you done this to me, I need to do something to you in return. But if we show them that the broader aspect is to be kind, to be compassionate, to forgive, to be loving, and we hold this value system very high in regard, inshallah, this will rub off onto our children. For example, the next one, to make salam, that we make it imperative that it's a very important value system that when we enter into the house, then we make salam, and this needs to rub off. There was an alim from Zambia, Mulana Yusuf Baks, a very senior alim and a very pious person, and alhamdulillah, we had the opportunity. I remember my dad taking us to go and stay with him, and he had this very unique way of making salam. He had a very boisterous voice, and he would enter into the house and he would say, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A very loud salam. And that's something that I still remember, and that resonates with me. So inshallah, we should make it a habit that when we enter into the house, we make salam. When we meet one another, we make salam. When visitors come, then encourage the child that go and make salam. Your foi is here, go and make salam. Your khala is here, go and make salam. Encourage them that, you haven't seen Nani for the last week or two. I want you to phone her and just make salam. So this is very, very important, that we hold this value of salam. Self-discipline, executive control, it's also a very important value system. This plays out that when you see a child cry for something, and you immediately give that child, just to keep them quiet, let's just give them the child is crying for a toy and is throwing a tantrum, and just to pacify the child, we say, all right, here's it, I'll buy it for you. But if you can tell the child that, you will get it, but you won't get it today. So you're teaching them delayed gratification, which is also called executive control. Delayed gratification, that, you want this thing, no problem, but you're going to have to do some chores for me for the next few days, inshallah, or for the next week, or for the next month, and after that, I will buy that for you. So you've earned it. But if you're going to concede to the child's every cry, just to keep them quiet, so that they don't feel sad, the child is going to grow up with this concept of instant gratification, and that it's owed to me. If I cry for it, it's mine. But we need to teach them that no, you need to work for it, you need to earn it, you need to you need to work towards it, and we delay gratification. Things like earning halal, which is imperative that we want to feed that we feed our children halal food. And there's so many stories of people that uh, feeding their children halal, how it gave them success. There's one story that I just recall from the top of my mind, and I'll just give the gist of the story. That there was a queen, and she had a son that went out in war, and I think he was leading the army. And the news came that the child was defeated and the child passed away. And the mother said, "No, this will be impossible." And then they asked her, "How come?" She says, "Because I made sure that I feed my child halal. So he can never be unsuccessful. I mean, since the day he was born, whatever I put into his mouth was halal." And the news came afterwards, no, that the child was alive and the child was successful. So we can understand that earning halal, putting halal into the child is very, very important. Things like respect for the elderly, that even if it is our helper, our domestic worker, you have to respect that domestic worker. The words that you use is imperative. How you speak to our domestic worker. Yes, we are paying her. Yes, we are paying our helper, whether it's the gardener. But at all times, I want you to ensure that you respect the elderly, and then rules and regulations. And this is very, very important, that our child know that they need to follow rules, they need to follow regulations, and we need to be consistent on this. So I'm going to give you a bit of a scenario that sometimes someone will shout your child. And I know this peeves many parents, that what right you have to shout my child. And it's very common. You as ustads in the madrasa, we hear this very often. "Oh, what right do you have to shout my child? I'm the parent, I will shout my child." So here, when you handle these type of situations, we need to look at the merit first. What is your child? Why was your child in the firing line? What did your child actually do? And the way we handle it is imperative, because the child, as they grow up, they realize that it's not who is watching us or who we have to be accountable, but it's the principle that that is important. So if someone shouted your child, maybe they took something. And children, as they grow up, they took something which is not right. So for example, they stole, and this happens with many small children, and someone else shouted them. Then we need to for them to understand that the principle of honesty is important. So it doesn't matter who shouts you. That person is correct in shouting you or chastising you, because you fundamentally had done something wrong. So this is very, very important in terms of rules and regulations, that the child realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with me all the time. I am accountable not only when people are there, but when people are not there. Not only when my parents are there, but I need to behave myself. I need to follow rules. I need to follow regulations, whether they are there or not. So there's a thing which I want you to do, inshallah, as homework. You need to ask yourself, what are values? Ask yourself that question. And what shapes our values? And I will just give you a few examples. It's our society around us, it's the friends around us that shapes our values. And then we need to ask ourselves, how can we shape our children's values? So tonight, inshallah, as homework for tomorrow, take out some time, whether it's about 10 minutes to 20 minutes, uh, and fill in these questions. And I really want you to think about this, because this is the building blocks of our decisions, and the decisions are what is going to shape the trajectory of our lives. Okay, coming to our identity, this is equally important, that who we are. And this starts from a very young age. The parent, what clothes they let the children wear, what they let the child identify themselves at, what they identify themselves, and This is very, very important. And we need to ensure that we consistently, uh, almost through affirmations, tell our children that, first of all, we are Muslims. You always need to remember we are Muslims. You are a good child. You need to affirm this to the child every day, that you are a good child, be a good child, because this is the identity that the child is going to have as they grow up. So when a child leaves the house, tell them that, first of all, you always need to know you're a Muslim. No matter where you are, have this conversation. Sometimes have this informal conversation with a child that, no matter what happens, always know you're a Muslim. Before the child enters into university, have the conversation with the child that, remember, you're going to university. There are many challenges. You have many choices. I'm not going to be there to be looking at you. There will be no teachers looking at you. You're going to have many now choices that you never have before. But I always want you to know that you're a Muslim. And always, no matter what situation, do not ever compromise being a Muslim, and know who you are. So affirming to the child that being a Muslim is what's going to shape them in terms of their decisions, that they identify themselves as Muslims. Also, it's important that growing up, to encourage them to affiliations of different Islamic groupings. So, for example, if the Jamaat comes to your house, and we have many a times that parents, the child will come when the Jamaat knocks on the door, and they'll ask, is daddy there? And the child will say, daddy says he's not here today. It happens many a times. So it's important that whether it's the Jamaat, whether it's ulama, whether it's the people from the Khanka, whether it's scholars, then we always need to tell them, whenever you need help, we seek our help from the scholars. We seek our help from people that are dini. We should always be helpful towards them. We should always try to help them. We should always try to participate in their gatherings. So this is what's going to shape our children's lives, the environments that we put them in. There's been so many children, there's been so many people whose lives have been changed by changing the environment. I remember by us, there was one youngster that came to us. He had a bit of a bad habit, and he came to our house, and his parents came, and they were crying, and he was adamant that he's going to go to a certain place. And we could see that at that point in time, he wasn't in the right frame of mind. And this youngster, after some time, alhamdulillah, he was put into the effort of Jamaat. And within a short space of time, alhamdulillah, by changing his environment away from bad friends, the same child today is a role model. And this is not an isolated case. There are thousands of these cases that as soon, parents have even given up hope with regards to their children. Sometimes they say, Mulana, just take him. They tell our elders, just take him. And because they can't handle it anymore. So changing this child's environment changes the identity of that child. So it's important that who we affiliate, sometimes we as parents, we speak of, oh no, that grouping is like that, or that Mulana is like that. What you're actually doing, you're creating this identification of the child from the ulama. So it's important what we speak and the words that we use. So inshallah, this identity, just to recap, is that continuously reaffirm to the child who the child is, that you're a Muslim, you're a good person. We sometimes tell a child, oh, this child is very naughty, he's very naughty, he's very naughty. This child, after some time, will say, no, I'm very naughty. He'll justify his behavior through his identification that I'm very naughty. So always reaffirm in the positive way that you are a good child, be a good child, be a pious child. It's so nice. The child sometimes goes onto the musalla and says, hey, mashallah, you reading namaz it's such a beautiful thing. And the next thing is the character and the akhlaq of our children. And this is very, very important, that we need to make the tarbiyah of our child, teaching them good character. As we mentioned, it starts off with making salam. It starts off with making salam. It's how they interact with people, how they interact with the broader society. And this is very, very important, because your child will be growing up dealing with different people. And so we need to teach them that when an elder speaks, what you should do. Let the elder person speak. You should be the first to make salam. You should be kind to people. You should be courteous. The tone in which you speak to your teachers, it's imperative. And this akhlaq is very, very, very important in how the child deals with the broader society. When a child, for example, with siblings, how do you deal with your siblings? You need to speak to them, that you need to show compassion, you need to show mercy onto the younger ones, you need to respect the elderly, because this is the words of our beloved Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Very important is in creating this character and this akhlaq happens through ta'aleem, through reading the stories of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, reading the stories of Sahaba Ikram. That Sahaba Ikram also had many differences with one another, but the respect in which they held with one another, the way they resolved their differences, the way they showed love to one another. Our beauty, there's thousands of stories that we can learn from the Sahaba Ikram. Fadail Amal is a very, very beautiful kitab that we can read. Hayatus Sahaba, there are English versions of Hayatus Sahaba that we can read. One incident of the lives of Sahaba and how beautiful they were, the akhlaq. It's so, up till today, when we read Hayatus Sahaba, my heart desires that we could just be like how the Sahaba are, and our love for Sahaba increases just by reading what beautiful akhlaq the Sahaba Ikram had. And the really remarkable part of the Sahaba Ikram was that they were normal human beings with normal human challenges. And in Jahiliyyah, they were the worst of society, but how they became golden stars, that today, up till today, we hold them in such high esteem with so much of love. So having ta'lim at home and asking the child, let the child sometimes read the ta'lim is important, so that they can understand, and asking them after, when a child reads that ta'lim or read that story, what have you learned today? So sometimes we just we read the ta'lim and we leave it as that. But sometimes we need to have a discussion on that you read this story, what do you feel in terms of the story? How did the Sahaba, what lessons did you learn? And this, inshallah, will shape our children's akhlaq. And remember, our children is not by what you tell them, but it's by what they observe, how you interact. So how you speak to the domestic workers, how you speak to the employees, that's what the children are going to learn, how to talk to the broader society. If you go and visit the elderly regularly, that's the same habits that the child are going to, the children are going to learn. If you keep family ties, that's the same lessons in terms of akhlaq what the child is going to learn. And very important is responsibility. From a very young age, we need to entrust responsibility to the children. So in this, people will argue why this, why that. But from a young age, we need to make children responsible. So whether it's making their bed, in terms of performing salah, every day we need to ask the child, did you perform your salah? Have you performed your asr? Ensuring that the child performs their salah. This responsibility of salah is very, very important. Things like making the bed, things in terms of their hygiene, that did you brush your teeth? Did you take a bath? We need to follow up with our children. And children are such that if you tell them today, you're going to have to tell them again tomorrow. So till for a long period of time, till it becomes part of their, as I say, their DNA, you're going to have to continuously advise the child, remind the child, did you perform your salah? Have you made your bed? Did you brush your teeth? Did you brush your teeth? Did you wash your face? And it's important in terms of problem solving. Sometimes there's different difficult challenges. Then we need to give children responsibility to solve those problems and be with them. That we're sitting with this difficulty. What's your advice with regards to that? And the last one is to acknowledge mistakes. And this is very, very important, that children acknowledge their mistakes. And it also happens with adults. When you make a mistake, acknowledge, hey, Maaf, I made a mistake. If a child has something wrong, the natural question we're going to ask the child, why did you do that? Most parents will ask, why did you do that? And now this question, this why question, is a very detrimental question. Because now when you're asking, why did you do this? Then the child automatically starts to create a lie, or to create a story, or a justification. So most cases, when you ask a child, why did you do this, when a child done something wrong, the child is going to create a story. And now, instead of acknowledging that mistake, the child is going to create a lie. So what we need to do in terms of our handling of that, when a child has done something wrong, the child tries to justify, say, no problem. Acknowledge what you have done is wrong. And let's see how we can resolve this. You have done wrong, acknowledge it. Let's move on from here. So if a child stole something, don't ask, why did you steal it? But you need to then acknowledge that, okay, you have taken this, which is not right. And there are consequences that you're going to have to face for that. So whether they're going to be grounded, or they have to now repay that item back, we then have to hold them accountable, but not justifying or giving them that opportunity of justifying themselves. So a child will come to you, Mommy, the ustad shouted me for nothing. And then you see the parent will get livid. What right does that ustad have? What right does that teacher have to shout my child? And then the parent will storm in the next day into the office that, this ustad, how can he shout my child for nothing? And then most cases, 99% of the time, you will find that the child actually misrepresented what actually happened. And so it's important, whereas the child was wrong. So don't justify. If the child has done something wrong, don't ever side with the child. Always side with the principle, or with the value, that the child had done something wrong, and the child needs to take responsibility for what. And this will teach the child a good lesson, in a sense, a life lesson. And there's going to be many growing pains, but inshallah, acknowledging, giving the child responsibility, acknowledging that we are human beings, we make mistakes, but the best person is that the best sinner is that person that continuously turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in repentance. So a child has done something wrong, tell them, go on to the musalla, go make tawbah, ask Allah ta'ala to forgive you. Even before me, go ask Allah ta'ala to forgive you. So this is very, very important, inshallah. As I mentioned, that if there are questions, you can always put it onto the chat. Inshallah, we will try to address those questions, or you could send us an email. Moving on, that children observe parents, and it's important that parents show themselves as a loving couple. Parents will have disagreements. Parents will not always be on the same side of the argument, but it's important that even when the parents, as children observe parents, they see their parents as a loving couple. And this needs to be shown in terms of respect with one another. When there are disagreements, then at no time should vulgar language be used. At no time should vulgar language be used in front of the children. If things are going to be heated, it needs to be done behind closed doors, not in front of the children. And this is important of parents. And when I talk of responsibility, then many parents will say, no, it's the husband, he's at fault. And the wife will say, no, she's at fault. But the reality are both of you are at fault. So you have no right fighting in front of the children or disagree. You can disagree with one another, it's fine. But once it becomes heated, it needs to be done behind closed doors. Also, the words that you use, the words that you address the husband or address the wife. And sometimes, there's lots of this animosity between the husband and the wife. Sometimes also, if there is a separation between the husband and the wife, and the words that they speak of one another. So when they speak to the child of the mother, then the husband needs to ensure that he always, no matter, even the husband and wife, it has their disagreements or they are separated, but the words that he speaks, that it's still your mother end of the day, it's still your father end of the day. And no matter what our disagreement is between one another, you still need to respect your mother, you still need to respect your father. And so it's important that the words that we use with one another as spouses, and the words that we tell our children, because this is what the child is going to pick up. This is a very, very important part, that sharing in achievements, happiness through praise and acknowledgement. Every child wants to be acknowledged. And so you will see the child will climb onto the slide, and the child will say, Abba, look at me. Or the child will jump and from one place to another place. They say, Abba, look at me. So every child needs that acknowledgement. And so you need to acknowledge your child. Ah, mashallah, well done. And if you do this, this will build up the self-esteem of that child, that they are being acknowledged. So up to we as adults, no matter how old we are or how big we are, we all still thrive on that acknowledgement. When someone praises us and compliments us, we love it. So we should make it part of our routine, that we acknowledge our children. If a child has done something well, acknowledge the child, that, oh, mashallah, you have done well, you have done well in school, you have done well in madrasa. If a child is very respectful, you need to say, hey, mashallah, I saw you were very respectful with regards to the domestic workers. Hey, keep it up. And we need to acknowledge our child, and we need to praise them. And you would see Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam also, the ways he would address small children, the way he would praise them, the loving way in which he would deal with them. It's really, really remarkable. So this is very, very important, that with regards to our children, we need to acknowledge what they do, and we need to praise them, inshallah. What's very important also is the past upbringing does not equate future upbringing. And many parents, by default, oh, we were raised up like this. So they expect the children to do the same. So this is very important, that sometimes don't live your life through your children. And for instance, a person wanted to become a doctor. And now, because whatever the circumstances were of the past, a person couldn't become a doctor. And so now they create this force, indirect force or indirect pressure on the child, that you need to become a doctor. So you try to live your life through your children, what you couldn't achieve. And this creates unnecessary pressure with regards to the child. So how you grow up. Remember, things have changed. What had happened 10 years ago, or society that we're living 20 years ago, today is a different society. The child is a different child. So let's not make this mistake of your past upbringing should equal the future upbringing of your child. Inshallah, we'll try to conclude in about 5 minutes. Studies have shown that 99% of those who grow up in an environment, especially their religion, end up with the same. And that is why we will see that if you have an Islamic home, by and large, and when I say Islamic home, it should not be a dictatorial Islamic home, but it should be a loving Islamic home. So when we're bringing in deen, and this is important, we need to show how what a wonderful and compassionate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. We shouldn't say, oh, if you do this, you're going to get punished. Or this. We need to show how loving, how compassionate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Teach our children the beauty of deen from the eyes of mercy and compassion as shown to us by our beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent as a mercy to humanity. Show our children that how beautiful deen through the eyes of mercy and through the eyes of compassion. And our parents, you are the greatest example for your child. It's not what you say, but it is how you act and how you behave. So a statistic, children are 3 times more likely to smoke if the father is a smoker. You can't tell your child, or it's been very difficult for you to tell your child, hey, don't smoke, when you are smoking in the house and everywhere. So it's important that we need to live as an example. And it's not only what we tell our child, oh, I told you to do this, don't worry about me, I can do something else. No, it doesn't work that way. You need to live your life as an example, and inshallah your children will follow you as an example. So children learn by duplicating parents' behavior. And this is the goal. And so whatever you do, always remember, children are observing how you behave, how you interact with your spouse. That's how they're going to interact with their spouse when they get married. Education must be interactive. We can always learn from one another, talk to your children. It's not only about telling your children, but having a conversation with your children. And the dialogue in doing so needs to be comfortable. So your child needs to be comfortable with you if they are facing problems at home, if they are facing problems at school, if they are facing problems with friends. You need to have that relationship as almost like a friend. They can come and they can confide in you that I'm having this problem. And you need to be in tune with your child. You need to be observing your child. If they are being bullied, you need to be able to speak with them that what's happening. I see that you're looking very, very sad. Is something happening in school? Let's see what happens. And the tone that you use is very, very important. There's one Mufti Sahib. He's got about 6 sons. And what's really remarkable is the tone. He speaks to them in such a humble tone, all 6 of his children. And the beautiful part is that all 6 of his children have adopted the same tone of the father. All 6 of them, I think, have become ulama. And all of them have a wonderful demeanor and this humbleness and this compassion you can see. So the tone that in which you speak to your children is very, very important. And also to have mashwara in your home is very, very important. There are small things to give them, your child, that opportunity of what is their opinion. If you look at Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, when he was faced with slaughtering his son, he asked his son, what is your opinion on the matter? So even in difficult matters, whether when you're going for holiday, asking the child, where do you feel we should go for this vacation? What's your opinion on this matter? And making mashwara with regards to your children. It gives them a sense of worth and that their opinion is also important. So I learn from you, you learn from me. And today, most of us, we know, with regards to cell phones, our kids, they way advanced. So asking them, show me how you do this. I see that you now on Instagram and Facebook. Tell me, show me what's this thing all about. So you learn from them, and I learn, and I learn from you. And in this way, also you also have a sort of a control of your children with regards to what they are viewing on the internet. And you know what? And you speaking to them about the difficulties of cyberbullying and how quick a person can be led astray. So learning from them and speaking to them, you will be surprised how much you can learn as well. And lack of family communication, as I mentioned, that if you don't have this clear conversation wherein your children can speak to you, then they will learn from other people, and that's what we do not want. So tarbiyah, highlighting inappropriate behavior. If someone has done something wrong, and the child has done something wrong, then telling them what you have done is wrong is not who you are, but what you have done is wrong, and what is the correct behavior. Many a times a child does something wrong, the parent gives the child one shot, but doesn't ever tell the child what the child should be doing. So you need to tell the child what is the inappropriate behavior, and then reinforce what the correct behavior is. So I don't want you to be jumping on the couch. You need to be sitting on the couch. So this is important, telling them what's the inappropriate behavior, but also telling them in the same way what the appropriate behavior should be. So identify the wrong behavior and show the appropriate behavior. And very, very important, as we conclude today's session, is to time block time for your kids and create happiness. There should be days, in every part of your day, there should be some time given specifically that you spend with your children. There are some examples that are in your workbook that you could go through, inshallah. So we need to every day ensure that we spend some amount of time with our children. And then you would see our beloved Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam would spend time with different people and giving them full attention, and inshallah creating this bond between the parent and the child. And this is giving the child and the children full attention and full focus. So inshallah, this concludes our session for today. Jazakallahu khairan for being a participant of this workshop. Tomorrow, inshallah, we will be speaking about adolescence and how to deal with children that are teenagers. And for many parents, this is a challenging time of their life. So inshallah, same time at 10 a.m., we will be speaking on how to deal with teenagers. Jazakallahu khairan. On behalf of the Jamia Online, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.